obviously.
We can talk about DFS if you want. We're tilting it right now as you speak.
Do it. Why not?
Playing some 25-cent NBA tonight.
You want to see someone get bent about a 25-cent entry into
I told Steve yesterday.
Arcade.
Yeah, exactly. I told him I quit DFS until next year after losing money and betting on EuroLeague basketball.
Yeah, that wasn't smart, Jason. I don't know.
EuroLeague basketball.
To be fair, hit
all
profit
in on
first
the
day.
GPP.
Yeah, I did. I made 6 lineups. All failed miserably on players I probably can't even pronounce their names. So
the names are tough. The names are tough.
That's the same even in the NBA though. Like half the people in the NBA are from Europe.
Right. There were 2 guys the first night. It was McCollum and McCallum, and I'm like, are spelling names wrong here, or which guy I'm supposed to play? And I was like, maybe I just won't play any of these guys.
That's probably like the best sign. They're like, a league on a continent that I don't currently live in, and I just, I can't pronounce anybody's name who's playing. I know nothing about this. Yeah, let's just throw a lineup in or 2.
Just looking at pure stats.
I'm guilty. I did it too. I played European League for 2 days.
Well, but what did John Proctor and Ryan Hodge say on the DFS Power Hour? Like, I'm sure they touched on that. No.
That's where we're getting the information from. That's where we were getting the information from. Not anymore. But
even for that.
The Power Hour Slack channel is for all sports.
Wow, I did not know
mainly
that.
football.
Here I thought I was making a joke, and it actually was in there. Okay, never mind then.
Yeah, actually, the Power Hour Slack chat for EuroLeague is lit. It is burning up every morning at 7 a.m. Pacific, getting ready for lock.
Yeah, it's done all night.
It's brutal.
But yeah, all right. No more DFS talk. It makes me sad. But welcome everybody to another episode of the Gut Feeling Podcast. My name is Jason Tran. As always, I'm here with Derek McCreef. What's going on, Derek?
Not too much, man. Just excited for the evening, have a drink, and talk some football.
Bless you.
Thank you. And thought I had my mic muted. But we're also joined here by Steve Marcus from FLAFFL House Podcast and FLAFFLhouse.com. What's going on, Steve?
Not much, fellas. Happy to be on here. I talk to you guys quite often, as you guys have been writing, doing things for the FLAFFL House website. So yeah, happy to be on. Happy to finally get the babysitter situation figured out, that I'm able to make it here.
It's about time you actually joined us, and then now you can say that you at least beat Sal at something to come on to this show.
That's right.
We know you don't beat him anywhere else, right?
I don't know. I've got 1 falafel championship to Sal's 0, so I've got him there. That's all I got. But that's all I got. I'm hanging my hat on that for 2 years now.
Hey, that's something. That's something.
We're also a little glad that we don't have Bathroom Kevin again.
Yeah. I'm coming live from an actual room. I'm not in a bathtub. And so, yeah, that is automatically a step up. But I'm sure it's only going to go downhill from here.
We got a jam-packed show here tonight, sort of. Maybe not. But I think we'll be good.
That's quite the backtrack.
Yeah. As usual, throughout the day, we're like, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. And then we get to a point where we're either going to just wing the whole episode, or we come up with some things at least.
Yeah, we throw some random things into the show sheet just to come up with a few things, and then we'll see where we get sidetracked to, because we don't really have a plan.
Exactly. But first thing I kind of want to talk about today is trade deadlines. Derek, I guess you want to talk about what you wanted to say?
So yeah, I just put this in here because I've seen some different talk about it. Obviously, it's that time of the year. Leagues are starting to have their trade deadlines come up in dynasty leagues and stuff. And I was kind of curious to get your thoughts on it. But first, I'll give mine, I guess. The biggest reason I'm thinking about this is my home league we switched the playoff structure last year at the AGM, but we from 8 teams making the playoffs in a 12-team league to only 4 teams. And as such, our regular season schedule went from, I think, 12 weeks to 14 weeks, but we didn't switch the trade deadline. So our trade deadline was actually yesterday, but now there's another 4 weeks of games of things that can happen in positioning, and the standings are actually pretty tight. Like, I'm currently sitting in first with 8 wins, but all the way down to 11th place has 4 wins, and theoretically could tie, and like in terms of a record base. So there's a lot that can happen in 4 weeks, and it seems like if nothing else, the deadline should be way closer to playoffs. But should we even have trade deadlines at all?
My opinion on the trade deadline is I think they're there for a good reason. I mean, so you get to a point where there's no matter what you can do, you're going to be out of it. So you don't want those teams trading away their, I don't know. I guess in redraft, I could see the trade deadline, but Dynasty, I don't think there should be one.
So I kind of think that in Dynasty, like I like the way Scott Fish has the thing set up, and Ryan McDowell in Kitchen Sink leagues. The deadline is like the Sunday of the last week of regular season, or as soon as playoffs start. You can't make any trades, because I could see people in the playoffs, if you get a big injury but you still happen to advance, you might completely salvage the future of your team and maybe just go in for an all-in arms race and overpaid to win. So I could see no trading in the playoffs, but I think that deadline should at least be a lot closer to the end of the regular season, because 4 weeks is a lot of time for injuries and various things to happen, where it could cripple your chances if you're in the playoffs, but then all of a sudden can't trade and make deals.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think for redraft, I agree with Jason. It's not as important, but for dynasty leagues, which a lot of us play in, I think it definitely needs to get closer and closer and closer to the end of the regular season. Dynasty leagues usually are put together more players who are a little more invested, so you don't have to worry about someone just selling off a bunch of lower end players or anything like that just because they're pissed that their season didn't go the way they wanted. So yeah, I would agree with that, but it does seem a little bit early for your trade deadline to be now, especially with, it's a pretty drastic change to go from 8 teams to 4, where, most leagues have at least, 50% of their teams making the playoffs. Only 4 in a 12-team league is a pretty big change. And to be cut off from any further transactions when there's so much time left in the season, I absolutely agree. I think it should be pushed back a little further than that.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think it was an oversight. It was just like we made these other big changes and didn't think about the trade deadline being switched, and then it kind of came midway through the season, and it was like, oh crap, the deadline's coming up. And obviously, you can't make that change mid-season.
Yeah.
So we have to wait till the AGM next year. But it just made me think about it, and I was like, I do think I agree with the trade deadline being there, at least for no trades in the playoffs. But then as soon as you finished like the championship week in week 16, I think trades should reopen and everybody should be able to trade all
yeah,
off
for
season.
sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm actually in the Empire League, and one of his rules is after a certain point, which I think is this weekend, if you trade for a player, you can't use that player in the playoffs. So the teams that are not performing well can still make those moves, are succeeding and are pushing in the playoffs. They just, even if they sell low or whatever on those, or buy those veterans that are just going to be finishing out the year, they can't use them in the playoffs. And I kind of like that rule because it lets you keep having trades, but then kind of puts that same limit on where they're not just getting rid of players for nothing, basically.
Yeah, so then there's no advantage to the people making the playoffs than to make a trade for a big name guy on somebody who missed the playoffs, because then they can't use him anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't thought of that type of rule.
It's a very, very John Bosch type of rule for a league.
Exactly. Fantasy insanity at its finest.
Yep, absolutely.
The spreadsheet that shows all the bylaws for that league is insane to look at. And I took over an orphan team this year, and like it's taken me all season to just kind of look through that and understand everything that's going on in that league. But so one thing that we kind of want to touch on is something that I've kind of thought about this year a lot. But has this been a really weird year for fantasy football, or is it just a weird year for football in general? What do you think, Steve?
So, like, yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, sorry.
I think it does feel like a weird year. But, every time I start to think that, I think back to last year, which also seemed like a weird year based on the trends that we had leading into 2016. And now in 2017, everything that we thought was, going to build off of 2016 doesn't seem to be happening. And so it might feel it feels like a weird year, but I don't know if I'm just, subject to recency bias and going through the motions of having a bad year and having a weird year. Obviously, all the injuries are there. We see Adam Schefter on Twitter posting his list of all of the big name stars that are on IR right now. So from a fantasy standpoint, you're just missing all of those types of points. And that's how I kind of look at at football. I look at it from a fantasy standpoint and how players are producing and how reliable players are from week to week. And you look at the top 10 players at each position every week, and it just seems like a different bunch of guys, or a bunch of guys that you wouldn't have expected going into the year. So it definitely has seemed like a different year, especially for fantasy football. So it's it's off. It's off. And
Yeah,
I want to blame my seasons on that.
and I think that's an easy fallback or scapegoat to go to, right? And I was the one who put this in the show sheet today, just trying to come up with ideas of things to talk about. But um, like, I've only played fantasy for 7 years, but it seems like the first few years it was pretty chalked. Like, it was the big name guys who you expected to produce seemed like they were producing. But as I've gotten more into it, I've learned that with the NFL, there's every single year you see a team that one year is terrible. So this year's example of it is last year the Rams were awful, and this year they are one of the best teams in the league, offensively and defensively. And so you get teams that turn around like that. And so then maybe that applies same to fantasy, that there's such quick transitions in the league in terms of how you can turn it over um, and whatnot, that maybe like it seems like it's really weird. But I feel like we have a lot of weeks this week combined with all those injuries you talked about, that you've got backup players scoring touchdowns. Like last week, it was Eckler and like Corey Grant and all these backup running backs and people that were getting in on the action and having big days, and then big name players like Antonio Brown and AJ Green and stuff having, or well, I guess Green ended up having a big day in the end, but lots of guys, Melvin Gordon had like terrible days, and they're all the ones that you would really expect to produce more. But it seems like that's been every week, that there's been a lot of no-name players going off. But
right, I think part of the reason why this season's weird is because I think there hasn't been an increase in injuries. It's probably about the same. I mean, just eyeball test, but a lot of the bigger name players are the ones getting injured. So that's factoring into why we think that part is weird. And then as far as scoring, it just doesn't seem like there's those guys with the consistent floors. Like they either have, everyone seems like a boomer bust player right now. And it just, it's hard to figure out who's going to go off at what time. But I think that's the biggest thing that's weird for me.
Well, I've seen Ryan McDowell tweet this numerous times over the last few weeks, but I think the only player at all of the skill positions to finish top 12 every single week that he's played a game is Zach Ertz, which
for a tight end to be the only person that does that is crazy in and of itself.
Exactly, because like tight end is such a crapshoot to begin with, and now it's really just three players in Gronk, Kelsey, and Ertz, it seems, this season. But
don't forget about Vernon Davis.
Oh, sure, Vernon Davis. Yeah, well, I guess speaking of, well, Vernon Davis, I'll use that as a segue to Jordan Reed. In one of my leagues, a guy was talking about not really sure if he wanted to trade Jordan Reed, and this guy's got a pretty bad team overall. So Reed is probably one of his only elite players, but obviously he's inactive almost every week. So I made the joke, well, it's better he's inactive on somebody else's bench than yours. Uh, but then he went and traded him for Austin Eckler, J.D. McKissick, and I don't know. I think a defense or something, or a kicker or something like that. And I was like, come on! I didn't mean to like give him away for free. I was just making a joke about he's going to be inactive every week. So, but yeah, that's another thing. Either way,
Vernon Davis, though, all jokes aside, when Reed is out, he can put up some numbers.
Yeah, he's been a tight end one every week that Jordan Reed has been inactive. So, I mean, he's definitely getting the usage. The wide receivers, we know how they've all taken a crap this year for the Redskins. They don't really have a consistent wide receiver there. Their tight end position has really been where Kirk Cousins has looked. And when Vernon Davis is there, he's getting a ton of volume. So that's what you want. And it's almost at this point, as someone who drafted a lot of Jordan Reed, but then also made sure to get a lot of Vernon Davis, I would almost rather have Jordan Reed just not be active until he's absolutely 100% healthy, going to play the majority of the snaps, because then it muddies the water. You don't want to have any part of it. But even when Jordan Reed returned from his first injury, Vernon Davis still had a great game because Reed only played a very small amount of snaps, and Vernon Davis is still on the field. So even if Reed is active this week, I'd still feel comfortable starting Vernon Davis
yeah,
in a bad matchup.
I think the biggest thing you said there is like when Reed's going to be 100% healthy, going to play all the snaps. So basically, never. That means
I should have said if. If I said when,
if.
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Well, I don't know if you said if or when, but just like that description just doesn't fit Jordan Reed because I don't think that's ever going to happen to him. He's not going to be that way. I know injury prone is not a thing, but like he's injured all the time. So
Injury prone is not a thing, but he is injury prone.
exactly.
Hey, one thing I just saw before we jumped on here is that Larry Fitzgerald is getting close to a 1-year extension. And I was pretty much dead set on the fact that him and Palmer were retiring. So if Fitzgerald comes back, do you think Palmer keeps going, or does Palmer keep going no matter what, you think?
I think it means that Palmer will come back for one more season because he was actually doing okay. Yes, he was throwing the ball a million times a game, but I think that if Fitz is coming back, I think he comes back and tries to give it one more go if the Cardinals will bring him back, because this was already a lost season, and essentially with the DJ being out. So I think he'll try. And Fitzgerald has still seemed like he hasn't really lost a step. I mean, he's not the same player he was before, but he's still producing. He's still producing game in, game out. So
Yeah, I'd agree. He gets open. It seems like he's always open. And yeah, Palmer and DJ getting hurt, like Derek said, it makes it kind of a lost season for them. So they're not taking a huge season-long toll on their bodies. I believe they also lost an offensive lineman for the season earlier in the year, which would hurt their offense and Palmer what he was doing until he got injured. So yeah, I don't see why not. I love to see that Larry Fitzgerald is coming back. I drafted him in a few dynasties startups this year, and thinking I was going to only have him for one more year, and to see him, potentially be back for another year, that only means good things. I don't think he's lost it. Like Derek said, he's not the same exact player as he was 2 or 3 years ago, but he's open all the time, and he gets the volume. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I just pulled up his stats. He's got almost 700 yards this season with 6 games to go. It's crazy to think that he's racking up that many yards.
well, I think like I said, he's not the same player as he was before. I think he's just adapted to his age, and he's adjusted his playing style as he needs to still be uber productive. Because I think it's been 2 or 3 years that people have been thinking, okay, like he's 34 now. So even a couple years ago when he was 31, 32, people were thinking, okay, like he's going to start to decline, like whatever. But then he just keeps having like wide receiver 1, a high end wide receiver 2, or at minimum wide receiver 2 type seasons with games where he's a wide receiver 1. So he's been pretty reliable. I've seen he's probably not the same skill as a Jerry Rice. I've seen Kevin O'Brien make comments about like Antonio Brown being maybe this year's or this generation's Jerry Rice, but like could Fitzgerald meet that type of comparison just for his production into later seasons?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's hard to compare anybody to Jerry Rice, I think.
Yeah, no, I know,
but it's crazy how long he's been so consistently putting up numbers, and right now he's the wide receiver 5, it looks like. So that's crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just something I saw, and I was fully expecting this to be his last year, which is why I thought they might have traded him at the trade deadline, but they didn't do that, and now he's signed an extension, so they must have some kind of plan, I guess, that he wants to stay there for another year. You know what I mean? I mean, if I was him, I'd be like, I got to go somewhere for 1 year at least or something. But I guess if you want to play there, you want to play there.
Loves it in Arizona.
Yeah, maybe he just legit loves playing the game and wants to keep playing where he's been the whole time. And obviously he wants to win, but maybe he's just like, man, I'm still playing. I still feel good. Let's just keep going. And if we're gonna win, I want to win here, and if not, I just want to retire a Cardinal.
Yeah, fair enough. One other thing that we want to talk about is pretty much the only news for this last week. Basically, just the other day, Tyrod Taylor gets benched for Nathan Peterman. I didn't think Tyrod was playing that bad, but it just, from the beginning of the offseason, it just felt like they didn't even want him there, and they just played him because he was there. But I guess the defense giving up 500 yards a game or whatever means Tyrod's bad.
Yeah, it almost seems like a couple of years now that the front office has not had any confidence in Tyrod Taylor, yet he continues to be a very consistent quarterback. From a fantasy standpoint, which we all look at this game as, he's got a good floor because he's a good rushing quarterback. And after he was benched, a lot of people that we respect on Twitter, Evan Silva, JJ Zachariason, they all just started flooding it with stats that, showed that he was a good quarterback. Over the last 2 years, he's been a better quarterback than Marcus Mariota, according to this completion percentage, his QBR, all kinds of different stats. He's been better than Marcus Mariota. And it's just this front office and this offense that he's been playing in that is not set up to benefit him and his strengths as a player. And they get rid of all of his weapons, and they expect him, they bench him like he's the reason that all of this is happening. So I was not a very big fan of this move. Seeing this move, I think it hurts LaShawn McCoy. I think defenses are going to be able to stack the box a little bit more, not having to worry about that threat of Tyrod ever running the ball. Nathan Peterman's not going to be, doing read options off the left end. They're not going to do that kind of stuff anymore. So I think this hurts Tyrod or LaShawn McCoy, Kelvin Benjamin, Jordan Matthews, Charles Clay, who had a really good rapport with Tyrod Taylor. I think it hurts everybody. I think I don't understand the move. Kevin on the FLAFFL podcast earlier was saying that you have this rookie, you're not going to stick with Tyrod going forward. Why not see what you got? But this team 2 weeks ago was 5-2. I think they're 5-4 right now, heading into week 11. They're a team that has not made the playoffs in who knows how many years. Well, I'm sure many people know because it's common, or it's knowledge that you can find rather easily. I don't know off the top of my head, but they haven't made the playoffs in a long time, and that is something that they could potentially do this year. And they pretty much are just saying that we don't want to do that. They trade Marcel Darius to the Jaguars, and then the next 2 games they give up 500 yards. Like you said, their defense takes an absolute dump, and Tyrod takes the fall for it. So, like I said, not a huge fan of the benching this week.
Yeah, I think he's getting a raw deal. Like the writing's been on the wall since the offseason because the organization clearly doesn't really want him. They were forced into having him there, and they didn't want to start the rookie Peterman straight out of training camp. But I mean, the stuff that you mentioned, JJ Zachariason posting a bunch of stats and various things about it. Like he's put a whole bunch of things out there that show they've been moving in a direction away from him to like a West Coast style offense, which is not the type of quarterback he is. And they've been going that other way. Nathan Peterman is a West Coast offense quarterback. So like the writing's been on the wall for a long time, and I don't think the benching is about him being bad. Like their defense has been terrible. Like you can't blame their losses on him. He hasn't been elite in any way, because I was listening to the Fantasy Tilt earlier today, and Dynasty Frank was talking about how he hasn't thrown for more than, I don't know, 280 yards or something in a game all year, and he's had 5 or 6 games this season where he's thrown for less than 180. So like he's not been really good fantasy wise. He's been great, or like, well, not great, but he's been a startable quarterback in 1 QB leagues. So I think it's more just about they're moving away from him, and they don't want him as their quarterback. So he's getting a raw deal. I hope that he finds a place to go elsewhere in the offseason. And I mean, with all of the crap quarterbacks that are starting this week and over the past few weeks, you'd have to think that some team would take a look at him and say, like, okay, we can use this guy and put his skills, because he's better than so many of the quarterbacks that are starting.
I'll take him in Denver any day. Any day.
Well,
I'll take him in Denver.
In the offseason, I was really hoping, when all the trade rumors and all that stuff was happening, I was really hoping that and Big Ben to Antonio Brown, Tim McIntosh. That's gonna hurt me. Whatever. Well, I was hoping that Denver would trade for him in the offseason, because I think that would have been.
Give me those shot, Antonio. Yeah, right now I'm hoping Kirk Cousins or Tyrod Taylor. Give me one of those quarterbacks in Denver. Come on, John Elway. Realize you screwed up. You didn't draft anybody good. You got nobody. Get one of these guys and help that defense out. Get one of those guys, please. Please. All right, I'm sorry.
What about Drew Brees?
Well, what am I going to say?
What
no
about
to
Drew Brees?
Yeah. What am I supposed to say? No, I don't want Drew Brees.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I wouldn't say that. No, I would never.
You don't think Brock Osweiler is better than Drew Brees? I don't understand what you're saying.
I mean, it's close. It's basically a coin flip, but I think I'm going to lean towards Drew Brees.
Give the old guy a shot, I guess.
I mean, if they like, I don't see the Broncos have the team that if they just had a quarterback, you'd think that they would have a way better chance, because their offense should be able to function way more efficiently than it has with the quarterbacks they've been rolling out there. And I mean, Simeon was good last year. He was way better than most would have expected, I think. But I mean, he clearly has not been that this year. He had a couple of really good weeks early in the season, but yeah, I don't know. They obviously need a different option there at quarterback. So there's many that out there that could be available. I mean, I don't know. I don't get the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. I don't think he was that bad.
He is straight blackballed from the league. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
no doubt about it. I mean,
it.
Tom Savage is a starting quarterback right now.
Yeah.
I think
Blaine Gabbert and Tom Savage are going to face off this weekend. How you guys feel about that?
Hey,
you looking forward to that matchup? Should that be flexed into the Sunday night game?
Yeah.
Most likely.
Oh man, that's actually something they would do.
Well, I mean, it might actually. What's the Sunday nighter right now? The Eagles and Cowboys. So I mean, that's like the Eagles are going to destroy the Cowboys. So it might not even be that exciting. It's simply because it's the Cowboys. That's a huge historical NFC East matchup. That like obviously that's going to stay there, but that's shaping. Looks like it's going to be just like a murdering.
Are you saying that you would rather watch Cardinals Texans over Eagles Cowboys?
No.
Kind of sounded like you're gonna. That's what you're saying.
That's where I thought he was going with that, but
yeah, I'm just thinking it could be a closer game. It might be more entertaining.
So you'd rather watch a 9-6 game as opposed to a 31-20 game?
No, I'd rather watch. Okay, backtrack. Cut that out.
Backtrack. Can we edit all this out?
Yeah, I'll edit it out. Don't worry about it. I'm writing down the time code right now.
Yeah. Sounds like a Scott Fish move right there. Oh yeah, I'll totally edit that out.
This might sound crazy, but I think Blaine Gabbert's going to do fine.
I think he's going to be good too.
I think he's going to do better than people give him credit for that he's probably going to do. I think he's better than Drew Stanton at least. I
You
mean,
think
he's
he's better
definitely
than Tom
Drew
Savage?
Stanton.
he's better than Tom Savage.
Is everybody better than Tom Savage?
Has Tom Savage thrown a touchdown yet?
He's throwing at least one to Nuke, I think.
Oh yeah, he's got 2
Yeah, you
now.
got one.
Because before,
Yeah, he's got 2 now.
yeah, for his whole
That's
career.
good.
Isn't that crazy? Since 2014.
It's not a good average.
2 weeks ago was his. Yeah, no, it's not great. 2 weeks ago was his first touchdown pass. So yeah, I would say Blaine Gabbert's better than Tom Savage.
All right.
I don't think he's better than Colin Kaepernick. But, who am I to hire anybody?
Yeah, I don't think you're qualified.
So this week, we talked Derek into finally jumping in the draft app with us.
Finally.
Steve, I was a little disappointed that you let him beat you. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I let him beat me by fantasy football, as we've talked about. It's a fun game, very fun. And but sometimes when you think you've got solid teams and solid lineups, they just don't go your way. And that is what happened to me. But I like your way of thinking a little bit more. Derek, first time in, didn't want to discourage him too much and not have him come back. So I felt like I might draft a team that's automatically going to flop with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and Julio Jones. I knew those guys were going to do nothing last week. So I took those off the slate. And, it was a fun time. I'm anxious to hear how Derek felt about his first time on the draft app.
I was really excited to get into the draft app and play against you guys because I know you guys have played quite a bit more than me. I mean, like Steve, you talk about it all the time on the FLAFFL podcast, and because most of your teams suck so much, so you need to draft other teams.
That's correct.
I was super pumped to jump into our little 3-man draft. Where you just do the quarterback, 2 running backs, and then 2 wide receiver, tight end. I'm pretty sure that I came out on top of Steve at least. I might not have won, but I mean, I still can jump in and know that I can beat somebody who's been playing that type of league all season. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I felt pretty good knowing that when I drafted Julio Jones and Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, that I was the only guy that got those guys. That's what's awesome about this app is that when you go through a draft, you 3-man, 10-man, however many, you draft that guy is yours. You ride or die with that player. And unfortunately, I died with a lot of different players this week. And but I'm down to do it again. And redemption will be mine.
Well, listening to you talk about that and list your roster, like I see the mistakes you made was like you neglected to draft the elite players like Josh McCown and Robbie Anderson. Like
I forgot to stack the Jets instead of the Steelers. I'm a fool.
Like that was clearly your issue, but I don't know. Who won that week anyway? I don't even remember.
I did actually, because I actually had wide receivers who produced, and I think that was the difference. And actually a quarterback who scored more than 14 points. But
sounds nice.
Yeah, I think even though we can avoid injuries by doing just a weekly draft like this, I think all of us got hit with injuries. I got hit with Fournette, or Powell, who's banged up too, and it just seems like everyone's getting hurt. Derek got surprised by Melvin Gordon sucking.
Oh, I thought he was going to do so well, but he hurt me everywhere. I have Gordon in so many leagues, including the draft app. It hurt me. I got to diversify.
Yeah, I've actually enjoyed playing on the draft app on basketball for head-to-head as well, football head-to-head, of course, and then the season-long ones. It's been fun to keep track of those and keep track of how much I'm winning at that time, which usually shows 0.
Because I'm obviously pretty new to it, but like there's so many different formats that you can play, right? Because there was all the season-long basketball leagues that you guys did earlier, but then there's the DFS essentially. But like Steve, you've hinted, you're just doing an actual snake draft, and you get to own those players, and you can buy in for anywhere from $1 to what, $1,000, I think somebody said. So like,
Yeah,
Right.
I got some pretty hefty buy-ins on there. A little too rich for my blood.
yeah,
I don't feel comfortable giving that much money away.
yeah, it's not a solid investment. I don't think
Yeah.
when you know that you're going to lose at seed. But I mean, like
Yeah, not
Jason
when
and
it's
I
me.
can go in and win. Jason and I can go in and win that, but you probably not.
Yeah, it's smarter for you guys to invest in such things.
Exactly. And it's easy for us to set up. And then when I told Derek that the draft would only take like 8 minutes, he was like, that doesn't seem right. That seems really quick. I'm like, yeah, it's whenever we're ready, we just hit go and then take turns drafting our players.
And in a 3-man draft like we did, it did not even take 8 minutes. I think we were done with that in 2 minutes.
Right.
You know.
I think 8 is the max if we all just time out. Might have been better off, actually.
I probably would have.
But yeah, if you want to jump on and play with us, or just jump on for yourself and try and win some money, you can go to playdraft.com/FLAFFL. That's FLAFFL. You can jump on there. If you deposit $10 or more, you'll get a free contest entry, and then you get to play against us too. So easy money for anybody who wants to play for actual dollars.
Well, easy money.
You can take my dollars.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I'm definitely doing one again this weekend. Maybe more.
There you go. And like I mentioned, one of the guys that
we draft Blaine Gabbert, and I will draft Nathan Peterman.
And I get
Derek,
Tom Savage.
No, I was saying you had to take Gabbert.
Oh, okay.
And so Derek can pick a terrible quarterback to ride or die with.
Well, I'm definitely not going with Tom Savage. I'll go with Blake Bortles.
That's not fair.
That's a top quarterback. You got to go with Deshaun Kaiser, I think.
No, can't do it.
yeah, Deshaun Kaiser.
Oh man, I hate Deshaun.
We'll pick one for you.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get one. We'll agree on one, a fair one. No Blake Bortles against the Browns. What are you trying to do? I see through your tricks.
Okay,
you fooled me once. You fooled me once last week.
Well, like I mentioned, one of the players that I played in the draft app was Leonard Fournette, and he's been dealing with this injury week after week. Is it something that's concerning you long term or for the rest of the season? Like, is it something that would stop you guys from putting him in there?
See, I don't think so. Like, it is concerning to me, yes, because like preseason he was dealing with this ankle injury and his foot injury, which I guess he's had back in through college and stuff. He's been dealing with this type of injury, and there was lots of talk about it being like, okay, you actually really need to be concerned about this. And then when the season started and he was playing, he was producing and looking really great. Like I think he's averaging like 99 yards a game or something when he's in the lineup. But then he was what did he injure a few weeks ago? Was it his ankle when he injured it? And then now he's re-injured it last week, I guess. It just keeps popping up. So like it's kind of recurring the same injury. So it is concerning to me, but I'm still going to start him where I have him. But I don't know. Long term, it seems like it could be an issue. Steve?
Yeah, I would agree. He dealt with an ankle injury, a different ankle at LSU. And so now that this has popped up this year and could seem to be coming back, doesn't seem to be going away after the initial injury, even though he missed the game and they had the bye week. And then on top of that, this matchup against the Cleveland Browns, although you would assume that it's going to be in a positive game script for somebody like Fournette, you'd assume that the Jaguars are going to, get somewhat of a lead and want to run the ball quite often. You'd be a little hesitant to, assume a huge amount of production from him as the Browns are pretty decent against the run, and he is dealing with that injury on top of that. So it definitely knocks his value down just a little bit, but I agree with Derek. You're starting him no matter what. You're getting him in there because, he's their lead back, and you know what he can do on any single run. So, yeah, you get him in there, but definitely something to keep an eye on. And it's a little worrisome that it hasn't seemed to go away. And it seemed like this is the second year in a row where he's dealing with this injury that lingers throughout a majority of the season.
Yeah, exactly. It is something that's concerning me right now. Like, it almost wants me to have them, maybe if they do get a big lead this game, just let them sit out the rest of the game, get some healing time. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, it was something that we were all talking about in the offseason when you're just drafting him in general. Is it something we're going to be concerned about? And now it's starting to pop up, and it's starting to affect his numbers now. So,
You know who hasn't been injured? Christian McCaffrey, the little running back that would never be able to make it in the NFL because he's so small.
right, no way he's
Haven't
going
seen him on the injury report once this year.
Yeah.
Although he doesn't get used like Leonard Fournette, to be fair.
He's a lot more like a wide receiver.
He's starting to pick it up, though. He's the guy that people need to keep an eye on right now. He's somebody that you can feel comfortable starting every week now.
Yeah,
I definitely
Dave.
agree with that. I definitely agree that you can start him every week now. And I meant to actually put this in the sheet because I wanted to talk about it. Like, so with him starting to really emerge, and it seemed like Curtis Samuel might emerge, but now he's been I don't know if he's been officially sent to IR, but he's done for the season.
Yeah, he's out.
Yeah, so he's done for the season. I mean, McCaffrey and Funchess are the two kind of key cogs in that offense right now, apart from Cam. Like, how do you guys see Olsen sliding back in? Because he's not playing this week, but I think they're expecting him to be back for week 12. Like, do you think he'll slide right back in if their offense keeps producing like it did on Monday night?
I do. I think that Cam and Olsen have a kind of, relationship on the field that is like riding a bike. I think he'll come back as long as he's conditioned and all that kind of stuff. I think he is going to step right back into that role. I think it hurts Funchess the most. And I think it actually probably helps Christian McCaffrey a lot because the more underneath routes that go to Greg Olsen, the more you're going to be able to play off of that with things that might go on the other side of the field to a Christian McCaffrey. So I think that when he comes back, he's instantly going to go back into a tight end one role. He's going to be a guy that you can roll out there every week. And I think that it hurts Funchess more because there's only so many pass attempts to go around. I don't think honestly, the way that I don't think they're not going to dominate everybody like they did the Dolphins the other night. So the pass attempts, all that stuff, I don't think is necessarily going to be there. I think that, McCaffrey's definitely somebody that's coming up and he's got a high floor. That's what I like about him is that with how he's using the receiving game, he doesn't get a ton of run in a rushing game, but he does decent enough there and he produces enough with the receiving work that he gets that he's developed a really high floor. And in a half-point PPR going into his bye week, he's a running back 12. So I think he's outperforming people or a little more than people thought. But after this bye week, it'll a high-end RB2, which is where a lot of people thought he would be at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
Is Carolina a dark horse to go to the Super Bowl right now, you think? Like, if they start getting everything clicking, they're 7-3 right now. They're the 5th seed projected, I guess. Just like a few weeks ago when the Bears beat them, they didn't even cross my mind as a contender, but they're looking good now. I mean, they're starting to get everything to click. I think, like you said, they're using Christian McCaffrey more and actually getting him the ball. And I saw somebody tweet it out today. I wish I could remember who it was, but it's the Panthers are 20-2 without Calvin Benjamin since he's been in the league. So, I mean, so now that he's off the team,
that's an unfortunate statistic because he has so little to do with the actual outcome of a game like that.
I know it's a weird one.
They're not 20-2 because he's dropping so many passes that he's just derailing their offense in such a way. I think that's a pretty unfortunate statistic. But I think the Carolina Panthers are kind of for real. Cam Newton is the type of quarterback he can lead an offense. They've got weapons on offense. They're getting Greg Olsen back, like Derek just said. And, they lost a couple games after Luke Kuechly missed some time with a concussion. So as long as he's healthy and as long as he's a part of that defense, leading that defense, I think that makes a big enough change for them where they can get to the playoffs and then anything can happen. I don't know if they're on par with the Saints, who seem a little more complete at the moment, and the Eagles, who seem very, very good at the moment as well. I put them a tier below them at the moment, but yeah, they're definitely somebody that can get hot, and they have the tools, they got the players that could definitely make a run for sure.
Yeah, like I don't know. I don't know if their schedule was soft to start the season, but like it seemed like they started off slow, and at least in terms of fantasy, their offense wasn't really producing a lot of numbers, but in real football terms, they were getting wins, so they put themselves to be in a playoff spot, and then the last few weeks or over the last little while, they seem to be really clicking. And somebody said like it felt on Monday night like it was back to their 2015 type of offense. And I mean, if they can start to do that every single week, then I think you have to throw them in there as a potential dark horse. Like with the way they started, nobody would have thought this after week 2 or 3, kind of the way they seemed, even though they were winning. But yeah, I do think you got to throw them in there for sure.
Yeah, the Eagles have looked like they've been the team that's going to go for a while now, and the rest of the teams are just seem questionable. I still think it's going to be the Seahawks at the end of it, but I mean, the Vikings are in there. The Saints are now starting to click and obviously have a good shot if their offense can keep going. And then the Rams, like you said, top scoring team in the league, which is crazy. But I mean, it seems like once you get to the playoffs now, especially this year, anything can happen. Patriots are still going to win the whole thing, though, so I guess it doesn't really matter.
It's all moot anyway.
All right, cut that out. We don't want Kevin Cotillo to hear that.
No, it doesn't matter. You know he thinks it already.
Yeah. He's probably already bought some sort of championship memorabilia for 2017.
A tattoo. He's got the 2017 Patriots tattoo.
I like those odds better than some of the other ones I've seen in the past of those tattoo predictions or whatever.
I think I saw someone with an Eagles tattoo that said champions 2018 through 2020.
I like that. That's taking it to the next level.
Bold play, Cotton. We'll see how that plays out.
Randy Marsh from South Park wheelbarrow situation going on with that.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick before we close out, one thing that kind of popped up today, Tyron Smith is out again for the Cowboys, for their offensive lineman. Is this something that you think can just completely knock the Cowboys out this year? Like this, because, I mean, the guy gave up 6 sacks to one player last week, and, well, their backup did. Now, obviously, somebody else is starting because he was by far the worst offensive lineman ever, it seemed. But could this one injury, I mean, in the addition to Zeke finally getting suspended, could that just totally derail their whole season? I mean, they're playing the Eagles, who are the best team in the NFC right now. So it looks like a loss, but I don't know. It just seems crazy that one huge injury plus the suspension could totally put them into next season.
I think there's a really good chance that it does. Like, I think they're already on the downward spiral anyway. I mean, unless like everybody was looking at say, okay, now that the offense is going to focus around Dak and he won't have Zeke to lean on. But now that like with a depleted offensive line, for sure, I think they were already going to get destroyed by the Eagles on Sunday night, regardless of any injuries. I just think that it was going to happen. But I think that it could just be the final nail in the coffin. And yeah, I think that they're probably done.
Yeah, I think I would agree there. It's amazing how, just a difference. I know they've lost someone to the Broncos for their offensive line in the offseason, but this one injury, it has seemed to make a huge difference. Zeke being out is something big, but the way that Dak was pressured last week, that wasn't because Zeke wasn't there. That was because the offensive line had a major injury to it. And I agree. I think it makes a pretty big difference. For that reason, and for game script wise for this week, I would definitely be leaning towards a Rod Smith over in Alfred Morris. I think that the Eagles are going to be ahead quite often and by a pretty decent amount in this game, and they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. So I think Rod Smith fits that offense for the Cowboys, where they would check down, although they don't seem to check down to the running back very often. He does have the better opportunity for that. But, I think it hurts the Cowboys quite a bit. I think that they're going to be chasing the Eagles, and with how the NFC has looked so far this year with, the Saints doing as well as they are and the Panthers doing as well as they are, like we just talked about, they're going to get a wild card spot most likely. The Cowboys might be on the outside looking in when all is said and done.
Yeah, it's just something I saw today, and it didn't hit me until just then that I'm like, their whole season's toast. Because hard to imagine that Seattle and the Rams don't get in the playoffs either. So, I mean, almost seems like those spots are locked up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Still plenty of football left, though. So, anything can happen, especially with players going down at the rate they are. But should be fun to keep track of.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's everything that we got for tonight. Steve, thanks again for coming on with us. And
oh, no problem, guys. Anytime that I can get it worked out.
Right, I could hear the asterisks on the end of it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
No, thanks for coming on, Steve. It was great to finally get you here, and maybe sometime we'll finally get Sal on too. Who knows?
Absolutely. I'll make it happen. I can strong arm Sal.
Exactly.
I believe it.
And I lost our article, #doing things again this week. So keep an eye out for my awesome picture that I have coming up this weekend. It's frightening for everybody else. I personally love it. I was saying that I'm gonna keep it permanently. But
So I just want to say, you said you lost again. So how many times have you lost now?
I mean, I don't know. I stopped keeping track.
I mean, well, I think we've only done it 4 weeks, and I think you've lost 3 times. Yeah, if my math is correct,
sounds right. I think. Yeah. I think the last 2 weeks I have a combined 3 points, so that's great.
Yeah,
pretty solid.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, speaking of that,
I'm trying to go for the deep cuts.
Yeah. Well, when everybody sees who you pick this week, I think that we'll be going for another week next week. But speaking of that, our article #doing things will be out on FLAFFL.com in the next few days, most likely. I know I've submitted mine. Jason's got to get on that pretty soon.
Saturday.
Based on what I've seen, I would assume the article will be out before the podcast.
Probably.
There's a good chance. So if you haven't already, go check it out.
Yeah, exactly. On FLAFFLhouse.com right now.
Yeah, exactly. And then once the week is over, we post the 2 pictures for the losers avatar for the next weekend. Make sure you go on there and vote. Helps us out, and it's really, as someone who's now going to put his 3rd picture up there, it's terrible. It's worse.
It's really terrible.
When Kevin pitched the idea, I was like, that's not a big deal. I'm fine with it. And then every week I'm like, great. What are people gonna? But now we have everybody else coming up with pictures.
Now that people are gonna start submitting picture,
yeah,
it's just
I'm like,
fantastic because the first couple of weeks we were making our own, and we'll probably still have to continue make our own a little bit. But I mean, if people start getting into it and submitting things like they're doing, like Jake Anderson and who else was submitting?
Alan Hepworth made the one.
Hepworth.
He's the one who made my picture coming up this weekend, and it's I was dying laughing actually.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. So definitely check that out on FLAFFLoves.com. And if the votes happen on Twitter, you can find Jason at Jason Tran. I am at the FFRX, and the podcast is at Gut Feels Pod. And then Steve, you're at Sid Skeet, right?
Yep. At Sid Skeet.
At Sid Skeet. So yeah, there's that. And then another thing we have to plug. Last night, Jason and I were on the Dynasty game night with John Bosch and Matt Price. It was a blast. I think that'll be coming out in the next day or two, so Thursday or Friday of this week. It was a lot of fun as we tried to hand Matt Price his first loss. Yeah, it was a good time.
I'm not gonna lie. In the middle of that recording, after all the alcohol had caught up with me, I kind of thought, I don't know if I'm entertaining anymore or if I'm just trying to win this damn game.
So I can speak. You were definitely entertaining. You were very entertaining. I'm feeling like you actually.
Because
I'm feeling like you had like a Will
beers.
Ferrell. I think you had a Will Ferrell old school type moment where you're just like, "What happened? I just blacked out."
Well, that was this morning when I woke up and I'm like, I don't remember drinking that many beers because they're all just on my desk, and my girlfriend just gave me the eye of judgment.
I really hope she's right behind you right now, giving you the eye of judgment again.
She is. But thank you everybody for listening again, and check us out on flafflehouse.com. Let us know if you want to play with us on the draft app, and we'll be back next week, I think.
Yeah, and the show will be out on the Falafel House podcast feed. You should go on there and rate and review. Probably specify that it's for us as well, but listen to the Falafel House episodes as well.